stop scrolling. Did you know that the most infamous spectacles in Roman history, gladiatorial combat, brutal animal hunts, and massive sea battles, didn't start as entertainment? They began as funerals. For the next 5 minutes, we're diving deep into the sands of the arena to uncover the truth of how a somber rite became a million-dollar death industry. Before we sink our teeth into this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. And let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. In 264 BC, the Forum Boreum reeked of cattle and wet stone. It was here, beneath a harsh Roman sky, that armored men stepped onto packed earth. These weren't soldiers, but slaves forced to fight to the death. Their purpose? Not glory, but to honor the freshly buried dead. Decimus Junius Brutus Scaeva had lost his father, and to mark the occasion, he staged what the historian Livy described as Rome's first recorded gladiatorial combat. It wasn't a public spectacle yet. It was a munus, a duty, or a funeral rite ode to the departed. The blood spilled was a solemn offering, not a sport. This private ritual, with roots in the gruesome Campanian custom of human sacrifice at tombs, quickly changed. In southern Italian cities like Capua, bloody rites were already shifting. The Samnites, former enemies of Rome, had long featured warrior duels during feasts for the deceased. Over time, ritual killing mutated into ritual combat. The specific act of death became less significant than the spectacle of the struggle. It was, as the Christian writer Tertullian noted, the spilling of blood for the sake and satisfaction of the dead. But the living were increasingly captivated and entertained. By the late 3rd century BC, these deadly duels left funerals behind and joined festivals. They moved beyond mourning ceremonies and were absorbed into Rome's burgeoning calendar of ludi, games sanctioned by the Senate. Initially religious, the ludi Romani were held to honor Jupiter, often during times of national crisis. The Senate, either fearing divine wrath or seeking favor, voted to fund them, thereby transforming the games from a matter of private grief to a matter of state. This shift from a familial ritual to a civic performance was subtle but seismic. By the Republic's close, temporary wooden arenas had been replaced by permanent, imposing stone amphitheaters. What began as a solemn rite in a muddy forum had been completely codified, scheduled, and publicly funded by the Roman state. And so, with every fresh drop of crimson spilled into the sand, the governing body itself was inscribing a new decree, one not written on bronze tablets, but brutally etched in stone. A terrifying roar echoed as the heavy iron gate scraped open, and the assembled multitude fell silent. From the dark tunnel leading to the arena floor, the cage barrier lifted. A lion, emaciated with ribs showing through its patchy coat, padded into the sunlight, starved, vigilant, and ready to pounce. This was no honorable duel. This was a public execution orchestrated for maximum public thrill. By the 1st century CE, Roman arenas had become deadly stages not only for man-on-man combat, but for man's forced confrontation with wild beasts. Known as venations when staged as hunts, or damnatio ad bestias when used for execution, these bloody spectacles were engineered to destroy the boundary between legal punishment and pure entertainment. The condemned, including criminals, prisoners, and sometimes rebellious slaves, were thrown against lions, leopards, or bears. These animals were often intentionally weakened by hunger to guarantee a quick, violent, and theatrical demise. This grim tradition had political beginnings. By the late Republic, powerful generals like Pompey understood the political capital inherent in spectacle. He famously arranged complex shows where men were matched against animals in elaborate productions. Scenes where blood bought both cheers and influence. Some fighters were trained professionals, bestiarii, forced or paid to engage the wild animals for the crowd's delight. Mosaics and stone carvings from the early empire document these moments with chilling precision. A figure with a spear raised as a lion attacks, a net fighter evading a panther's claws. A relief from the 1st century CE captures a fighter's terror, frozen mid-motion, eye to eye with a charging beast. These depictions weren't fantasies. In Roman Britain, experts unearthed the pelvis of a man, likely a gladiator, scarred by deep bite marks that matched the jaw of a large feline. The silent wounds tell a definitive story. He perished locked in desperate combat with a lion. Across the vast empire, from the majestic Colosseum to minor provincial amphitheaters, this ritual of slaughter was endlessly repeated. Seneca, writing in the 1st century CE, recounted how some prisoners chose suicide before their scheduled spectacle rather than endure a death intended purely to entertain strangers. Their refusal was an ultimate, quiet rebellion, a final claim of self-control in a society designed to rob them of everything. What unfolded in the arena was not simple violence. It was calculated humiliation. Hunger became a sophisticated weapon. Beasts were starved not just to ensure death, but to ensure maximum terrifying performance. The massive, man-made lake glimmered under the sun, calm for only a fleeting moment. Then a relentless drum beat thundered, and war horns shrieked through the air. 2 full-scale battle fleets surged toward each other across the reservoir. Armed sailors stood ready on triremes with spears and catapults. Below them, thousands roared their approval not from riverbanks, but from towering stone bleachers. This was not war. It was extravagant entertainment. Rome called these events Namekiae, staged naval battles fought not on open seas but in massive, engineered basins, frequently ordered by the emperor himself. Julius Caesar staged the first in 46 BC. Near the Tiber, he commanded an artificial lake to be dug to reenact a naval clash between Tyrian and Egyptian fleets. They used real ships, real weapons, and real men, condemned prisoners who fought not as actors, but as desperate soldiers with zero expectation of survival. The spectacle ballooned in size. Augustus, Caesar's successor, built an enormous basin in 2 BC, measuring 1,800 by 1,200 Roman feet. So vast it needed its own aqueduct, the Aqua Alsietina, for filling. On those constructed waters, 30 warships clashed, crewed by thousands of convicted criminals. The sheer scale of the Namekia was absolutely staggering. The message sent by the emperor was loud and clear. Rome's authority extended beyond commanding armies. It commanded nature itself. Sometimes, these aquatic battles left the artificial lakes for even grander settings. In AD 52, Emperor Claudius drained the vast mountain lake Fucine for a spectacular Namekia. As the condemned fighters prepared to slaughter one another on the water, they famously hailed him with words that survive to this day: Morituri te salutant. Those who are about to die salute you. Asterisk whether this was a scripted line or a spontaneous, chilling moment. The phrase perfectly captured the raw, fatalistic acceptance of men sent to their doom for the public's amusement. By the time the Colosseum, officially the Flavian Amphitheater, was inaugurated under Titus, the Namekia had become an essential component of imperial grandeur. Some historians suggest Titus might have used Augustus's nearby basin to stage naval battles during the dedication ceremonies. Later, under Domitian, it's possible similar games were staged inside the Colosseum itself, its arena floor temporarily flooded to host miniature maritime carnage. Even under Trajan, a century after Caesar, the deadly tradition persisted. In AD 109, he constructed the Namekia Vaticana, a massive flooded arena near the Vatican Hill, where more battles of spectacle and death played out before roaring masses. Every Namekia was more than a simple performance. It was a demonstration of the emperor's total, unchallenged control over water, control over men, and control over the vast empire. In these choreographed aquatic wars, Rome wasn't merely reenacting conquest. It was ritualistically recreating domination, drawing immense power from the terrifying illusion that war could be staged, and yet remain absolutely lethal. By the Colosseum's historic opening in AD 80, executions were no longer simply a legal punishment, they were a form of hypertheater. Emperors, starting with Titus, used the midday break between the gladiator matches to stage elaborate mythological tortures. Crucially, these were not symbolic dramatizations. They were real deaths, meticulously designed to mirror the hideous agonies of legendary figures. Martial, the poet and an eyewitness to those inaugural games, recorded the horrors. He described a figure playing Orpheus entering the arena to charm wild beasts with song. But unlike the myth, where nature submits to Orpheus's music, in the arena, the beasts simply tore the man apart. One of the most disturbing reenactments involved the myth of Pasiphaë, the Cretan queen cursed with lust for a bull. Roman crowds were forced to watch a woman, or perhaps a condemned man in disguise, savagely thrown to a beast in a terrifying, twisted imitation of her tragic fate. The performance utterly shattered the boundary between ancient myth, judicial punishment, and grotesque voyeurism. Fire, too, was a major player. The tunica molesta, a garment saturated with pitch, was fastened to the condemned and set ablaze. This horrific death was sometimes framed as the fate of Mucius Scaevola, the Roman hero who proved his loyalty by holding his hand in fire. Whether the victim played Scaevola or another fiery martyr, the result was always the same: agonizing screams drowned out by roaring applause. Tertullian, the Christian writer, bitterly detailed how victims were burned alive, tied to posts, and openly mocked as actors in a play of sheer torment. "We are mocked as kindling men," he wrote, describing executions where people were turned into living torches, where unspeakable pain was masquerading as moral spectacle. These mythological tortures weren't about history or storytelling. They were a powerful exercise in control, wrapped in deadly ritual. Rome didn't just execute people. It made death an echo of divine punishment, providing the audience not with justice, but with a deeply perverse, blood-soaked catharsis. And so, as ancient legends were violently resurrected in blood and flame, the line between theater and execution utterly collapsed. In the great Roman arena, myth was not read, it was brutally relived. Rome's arenas transformed ritual into official state policy, and spectacle into statecraft. The blood spilled on the sand, the water, and the flame forged a unique culture that measured the depth of its power by the precise choreography of death. The echoes of these terrible events still haunt every modern debate on violence, media, and entertainment. Which of these spectacles, the funeral duels, the bestial hunts, the namakii, or the mythic tortures, do you think best exposes Rome's absolute control over human life itself? Comment below with your insight. As the philosopher Seneca wrote, reflecting on the arena's effect on the spectators, "I come home more greedy, more ambitious, more self-indulgent, yes, even more cruel and inhuman, because I have been among human beings." Don't let this history fade. If you want to uncover more dark secrets from the ancient world, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most savage spectacles.